I've always loved stargazing, but after what happened last night, I'm never looking at the night sky again. It's funny, how something as simple as looking up at the stars can bring you so much peace. I've always found comfort in the night sky. The constellations, the way the stars twinkle as if they're sending some sort of secret message. It's my escape, my way of disconnecting from the chaos of everyday life. A perfect night sky, no clouds, no light pollution. Just a vast sea of stars stretching out in every direction. I mean, who doesn't love a good stargazing session, right? But last night that was different. It was another typical evening. The kind where I'm on the grass, looking up, thinking about life. The stars above me were clear, as they usually are on nights like this. It wasn't the kind of night where you expect anything out of the ordinary to happen. Just me, the sky, and the quiet hum of the world around me. I've done it hundreds of times before, but last night, I saw something that completely shook me. It started small. I was just scanning the sky, casually watching the stars. Then, something caught my attention. It wasn't one star, but a cluster of lights. At first, I thought they were satellites, moving slowly in their usual linear patterns. But these lights didn't move like satellites or planes or anything I'd seen before. They flickered, almost like they were playfully shifting in and out of place. No set direction. It was like they were dancing through the sky, darting around, blinking in different colors. It didn't make sense. Now, I'm not the type to jump to conclusions. I mean, I know there are plenty of natural phenomena that cause strange visual effects. Maybe it was a weird atmospheric condition or some kind of new technology in the sky. I tried to tell myself it was just something simple, but then they moved again. I thought it was just the wind playing tricks on me, or maybe a plane at a weird angle. But no, this was different. These lights, no. These things, they didn't move like planes. They flickered and swirled in erratic patterns, almost like they were alive. I mean, alive in a way that made me feel uncomfortable, as if they weren't just there, but aware of my presence. I could feel my heart starting to race as I sat up, eyes locked on the lights. I tried to tell myself it was just my imagination running wild. But deep down, I knew something wasn't right. I'd been stargazing for years, but I'd never seen anything like this. As the lights flickered and danced, I began to notice something else. The movements weren't random. No, they were deliberate, controlled. It was as if they were trying to communicate with me. I know how that sounds, but trust me, it didn't feel like a coincidence. It was almost like they were aware of me, watching me. For a moment, I thought maybe it was just a strange illusion or a weird reflection. But no matter how I tried to rationalize it, the feeling didn't go away. The more I stared, the more real it became. Something out there, in the vastness of the sky, was aware of my every move. And I couldn't look away. You know how you sometimes get that feeling that someone's staring at you, even when you're not sure if they are? It was like that, only magnified 1,000 times. The more I tried to convince myself it was nothing, the more the lights seemed to confirm that they were watching me. The way they flickered in my direction, it wasn't random. It was intentional. But I wasn't the only one watching them. They were watching me. As the minutes went by, I couldn't stop myself from staring. It was as if my eyes were locked on them. These lights, they weren't just in the sky anymore. They were in my mind. And for the first time, I felt like the stars weren't just something pretty to look at. They were something more. Something I couldn't explain. And then, just as quickly as it all started, they disappeared. The lights faded into the night, leaving me in stunned silence, my heart pounding in my chest. It was like they'd been there just long enough to leave me questioning everything I thought I knew about the night sky. I sat there for what felt like hours, my mind racing. What had I just seen? Was it a trick of the light? Some natural phenomenon I couldn't explain? Or was it something more? And if it was more, what did it mean? I don't know what happened out there, but I can tell you this. I'm never looking at the night sky the same way again. It started as an ordinary Friday night. There was nothing unusual about it. I live in a small town, surrounded by trees and rolling hills. The kind of place where the air smells fresh and clean, and the only sounds you hear at night are the crickets and the occasional rustling of leaves. It's peaceful, so peaceful, in fact, that sometimes it feels like time slows down here. And the best part, the lack of light pollution. The stars are absolutely breathtaking. You can see everything up there, every tiny detail, as if the sky is an open canvas full of endless possibilities. I always find something calming about the night sky. It's where I'd go to clear my mind. After dinner, I grabbed my telescope, the one I'd had since I was a kid, and made my way out to my usual spot, a small hill behind my house. It's my personal retreat, my place to unwind and enjoy the vastness of the universe. I set up the telescope, adjusted the settings, and took a deep breath. The air was cool and the night felt calm. Everything was perfect. Just me, the crickets, and the stars. I was used to this routine by now. I'd spend hours out here on clear nights, marveling at the constellations, maybe even spotting a few shooting stars or planets if I was lucky. But that night, something felt different. A strange sort of stillness in the air, like the whole world was holding its breath, waiting for something. As I adjusted the focus on my telescope, trying to get a clearer view of Orion's belt, I noticed something that didn't belong. At first, I thought I was imagining it, but no. There it was, a cluster of lights, hovering unnaturally still in the sky. They were too bright to be stars, too close together to be anything natural. The lights flickered gently, but their stillness was what made me pause. In the thousands of nights I'd spent stargazing, I'd never seen anything quite like this. I adjusted the focus again, hoping to make sense of it, but the lights didn't move. They didn't behave like any satellite or airplane I knew. They were suspended there, too perfect, too still, almost as if they were waiting for me to notice them. I squinted my eyes, trying to focus more clearly. Were they distant planes? Maybe some aircraft with lights that I hadn't seen before? But no! These lights didn't have the steady path I was used to seeing with airplanes or satellites. They remained stationary, flickering ever so slightly, almost alive. It was like they were there, just for me, in the way that no star should be. And as I stared, trying to make sense of what I was seeing, I felt something shift in the air. It wasn't just the strange lights. It was the sense that something wasn't right. I couldn't put my finger on it, but a feeling of unease began to creep up my spine. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe it was just an odd trick of the light, a flare of some kind from a nearby town. But deep down, I knew something was off. And that's when I started to get that feeling. You know the one, like you're being watched, like you're not alone. At first, I thought they were drones. That was the simplest explanation, right? Drones flying in some kind of formation. But the more I stared at the lights, the more I realized something wasn't adding up. Drones don't hum like that. The sound was low, almost mechanical, but deeper, guttural, vibrating in my chest, like a hum you feel rather than hear. It wasn't the kind of noise a drone should make. Not any drone I've ever heard. It was like the hum was alive, like it was coming from the lights themselves. My heart started to beat faster, the unease in the pit of my stomach growing with every passing second. I stood frozen, my hand still clutching the telescope, but I didn't care any more about getting a better look at the stars. The telescope felt like a distant thought, an object I had no use for as my eyes stayed locked on those strange lights. I couldn't look away. Then, just when I thought my mind was playing tricks on me, the lights started to move. It wasn't a gentle drift like a plane crossing the sky. No! These lights moved in perfect synchronization, as if they were working together, almost like they had a purpose. They formed shapes, circles, triangles, perfect geometries that made no sense in the sky. They were too deliberate, too controlled, too precise. At first, I thought I was imagining it, but as they shifted again, moving fluidly, the realization hit me hard. They weren't random. It felt deliberate. like someone or something was trying to communicate. But with what and why? My pulse quickened, and I could feel the tension in my body growing with each new formation. The shapes didn't make sense, didn't belong. They weren't just lights anymore. They were a message. Or maybe they were a warning. I couldn't tell which. And then, as if the strange display in the sky wasn't enough, something else happened. The air around me changed. It wasn't a gentle shift or a sudden gust of wind. It was as though the very atmosphere had thickened, become more oppressive, like the world itself was holding its breath. It got colder, too, a sharp, biting chill that wasn't there a moment before. My breath started to fog in front of me, even though the evening had been warm just minutes ago. I felt the weight of the air pressing in on me, and then, something I couldn't ignore, my ears popped. Not once, but twice, like I had just descended into a deep cave. I could feel the pressure building inside my head, an uncomfortable sensation that made everything feel wrong. But the worst part? The trees. I swear, as the temperature dropped, the trees around me, tall, sturdy pines that I had grown up with, started to bend. Slowly at first, like they were swaying in the wind. But there was no wind. They leaned, almost imperceptibly, towards the lights, as though they were drawn to them. I could hear the creaking of branches as they moved, a sound that sent chills down my spine. It was unnatural. The way the trees seemed to bend towards the lights, like they were trying to reach out, almost as if they had a mind of their own. My heart pounded in my chest, my thoughts spinning. I had no idea what was happening. Was I witnessing something supernatural? Something out of this world? Or was it all just a freaky coincidence? A series of strange but natural occurrences? But deep down, I knew the answer. I wasn't alone anymore. And whatever was out there, whatever those lights were, they were aware of me. Before I could even process what was happening, the lights moved again, but this time they shot downward, faster than anything I'd ever seen. One moment, they were hovering in the sky, and the next, they were right above me, blinding me with a sudden, intense burst of light. It was like a spotlight had been aimed directly at me, and I couldn't do anything but squint and shield my eyes. The light was so bright, so overpowering, that it felt like it was searing into my very soul. I tried to turn away, but my body wouldn't move. The fear held me in place, frozen, as the light engulfed me. And just as quickly as it came, everything went dark. When I opened my eyes again, I wasn't on the hill anymore. The peaceful, familiar scene of the woods and stars had disappeared. I was lying on cold metal, and the air smelled sharp, sterile, like chemicals. The kind of smell that made your stomach turn. I couldn't make sense of it at first. I blinked a few times, trying to focus, but everything around me was blurry. As my vision cleared, I realized I was in a room. But not just any room. This place felt wrong. The walls were metallic, shiny, but they didn't seem to reflect the light. They just absorbed it, like they didn't care about the world outside. And there was something else, something I couldn't shake. Shadows moved in the corners of the room. They were quick, darting figures that didn't seem to belong. I turned my head, trying to make sense of the shapes, but my body felt weak, as though it was no longer mine to control. And then I saw them. They weren't the little green men I'd heard about in movies. No! These figures were far worse. Tall, gaunt, skeletal beings, their skin stretched tight over their bones. Their eyes were the worst part. They were deep, dark pits, eyes that seemed to swallow the light around them. They stared at me, and in that moment, I felt my whole existence shrink, reduced to nothing but a speck under their gaze. I wanted to scream, to fight, to run, but no sound came out. I couldn't move. I couldn't even blink. I was paralyzed, trapped in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. And then, just as I thought my mind would break under the weight of the terror, everything blurred again. I don't remember much after that. Just flashes, quick, disjointed moments of horror. A blinding beam of light, scanning my body, cold and impersonal. A voice in my head, not spoken aloud but inside my mind, whispering things I couldn't understand. The words weren't English, not even any language I recognized. It was like an alien rhythm, a pulse that didn't match anything familiar. And then, the sensation of floating weightless, like I was no longer part of my own body. I couldn't process it. It was like I was drifting in and out of consciousness, caught between the terrifying reality and some otherworldly space where nothing made sense. When I finally woke up, I was back on the hill. The stars were still up above me, the woods still silent. But something was wrong. I sat up, disoriented, feeling the cold ground beneath me. My watch was gone. I reached for my phone, but it was dead, completely drained. The battery at 0%, even though it had been fully charged just before I left. And worst of all, I felt different, changed, as if the events of that night had left some mark on me that I couldn't quite explain. Something inside me had shifted, and I didn't know how to make sense of it. I rushed home as fast as my legs could carry me, my heart pounding in my chest. I slammed the door shut behind me and locked every window, double-checking each one as if the lights might somehow break through. I couldn't shake the feeling that they were still out there, watching me. The stillness of the house felt suffocating, like I was trapped in a bubble of silence that wasn't safe at all. I barely slept that night, tossing and turning, haunted by flashes of the metallic room and those horrible eyes. But it wasn't until morning that I noticed something that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. Tiny, perfect circles. I looked down at my skin, and there they were. Strange marks, like bruises but too clean, too precise. They were scattered across my arms and legs, as though someone had pressed something small, round, and cold against my skin. I tried to convince myself it was just from the anxiety, maybe a result of the stress, but deep down, I knew better. These marks weren't natural. They weren't something I could explain away. And then there was my dog. Normally, she's glued to my side, always following me from room to room. But that morning, she wouldn't come near me. She growled when I tried to pet her, her fur standing on end, eyes wide and fearful. I thought I was imagining it, but no matter how I called her, she refused to approach. It was like she could sense something I couldn't, something wrong with me. I tried to shake off the unease, but when night fell again, I couldn't escape the truth. The lights were back, just as they had been the night before, hovering over the woods, flickering in their strange, hypnotic dance. And this time, I knew they were waiting for me. I don't know what they want or what they did to me, but every fiber of my being tells me that whatever happened that night wasn't over. I feel different, like something inside me was altered, something I can't put into words. A part of me wants to run, to leave this place and never look back. But I know that's not possible. The lights will always find me. If anyone else has seen these lights or experienced something like this, please reach out. I can't be the only one. I don't want to feel alone in this, even though, deep down, part of me wishes I'd never seen them at all. Maybe there's someone out there who knows what's really happening. Someone who can explain the strange marks, the lights, the fear that follows. Please, if you've had any similar experiences, share your story. I need to know that I'm not losing my mind, or worse, that I'm not the only one they're watching.